A single dad found a crying nurse with her baby in the rain that Tuesday night, unaware she'd lost everything but hope. What he didn't know was that saving her would be the very thing that saved him. This is the story of how one decision on the worst night of two people's lives became the beginning of everything. Before we continue, please tell us, where in the world are you tuning in from? We love seeing how far our stories travel. The rain hammered like bullets against the windshield. Chase Ellis squinted through the downpour, his calloused hands gripping the steering wheel as lightning cracked the Oregon sky wide open. 11:30 on a Tuesday, 14-hour shift. Bone tired, didn't even begin to cover it. That's when his headlights caught them. Two figures, huddled beneath a bus shelter. A woman clutching a child, both soaked through. Something about the way she held that little girl made Chase's foot hit the brake before his brain could talk him out of it. He learned long ago not to ignore that gut feeling. Chase pulled over and stepped into the storm. Rain soaked through his jacket instantly. As he got closer, he could see her face, young, maybe 30, with dark hair plastered against her cheeks. But it was her eyes that stopped him cold. Pure desperation.
"Ma'am," Chase called over the thunder, "are you all right?" She looked up, tears mixed with rainwater on her face. In her arms, a little blonde girl whimpered softly. "We're fine," her voice cracked on the lie. "Thank you." She was wearing scrubs under a thin jacket. A nurse. "You're both going to get hypothermia out here," Chase said gently. "I've got a son at home with a sitter. I'm heading back now. Can I give you a ride somewhere? Hospital? Police station?" The woman's face crumbled. Fresh tears spilled down her cheeks. "I don't—" She could barely get the words out. "I don't have anywhere to go." 6 words that hung in the air like a confession. Chase felt something shift in his chest. He knew that look. He'd worn it himself once. "Come on," he said quietly. "Let's get you both out of this rain." 20 minutes later, Chase was unlocking his front door, ushering the shivering woman and child inside his modest 2-bedroom rental. His neighbor, Mrs. Maria, gathered her things quickly when he explained there was an emergency. "Let me get you towels," Chase said, already moving, "and some dry clothes. I'll make tea." The woman stood frozen in his entryway, still holding her daughter like she couldn't quite believe this was happening. "I'm Jessica Collins. This is Aurora." "Chase Ellis. Nice to meet you. Wish it were under better circumstances." He handed her towels and one of his flannel shirts. "Bathroom's down the hall. Take your time."
While Jessica changed, Chase checked on his 7-year-old son, Aiden, finding him asleep with a comic book on his chest. He smiled despite his exhaustion, then headed to the kitchen to put the kettle on. When Jessica emerged 15 minutes later, Aurora wrapped in a towel and wearing one of Aiden's old shirts, she looked marginally better, but her eyes still carried that haunted look. "Sit," Chase said, gesturing to the kitchen table. "You don't have to tell me anything, but if you want to talk." Jessica sank into the chair. Aurora curled in her lap, finally asleep. She stared at the tea for a long moment. Then, slowly, it all came out. "I've been a nurse at Cedar Falls General for 6 years," she said quietly. "Single mom since Aurora was born. Her father left when he found out I was pregnant. Said he wasn't ready for kids." "Like I was." Chase stayed silent, just listening. 6 weeks ago, the hospital got bought out. Corporate restructuring. They let go of 15 nurses, including me. Replaced us with cheaper, less experienced staff. Her hands trembled around the cup. "That's it?" Chase asked, his jaw tightening. "That's it." Jessica's voice went hollow. "I searched everywhere for another job, but word spreads fast in nursing. Everyone assumed the worst about us. My savings disappeared. Aurora has asthma. Her medication isn't cheap. Yesterday, I couldn't make rent. My landlord gave me until today." She stopped, swallowing hard. "I called everyone I knew. My parents passed away years ago, no siblings, and my friends?" She shook her head. "You learn who your real friends are when you're desperate. I spent today selling whatever I could. It wasn't enough. By evening, my stuff was on the sidewalk. Locks changed." "Where are your belongings now?" Chase asked carefully.
Gone. I took what I could carry, some clothes, Aurora's inhaler, my nursing credentials. Everything else, her composure cracked. I called 4 shelters, all full. I didn't know where else to go, so I just sat there in the rain. Chase felt his throat tighten. He knew something about that kind of desperation. "You'll stay here," he said quietly. Jessica's head snapped up. "What? No, I couldn't." "You'll stay here," Chase repeated firmer this time. "I've got a spare room. Well, more of an office with a futon, but it's warm and dry, at least until you get back on your feet." "You don't even know me," Jessica protested. "I'm a complete stranger." "I know you're a mother who'd rather sit in freezing rain than put your child in danger," Chase said steadily. "I know you're a nurse who got screwed by corporate greed, and I know what it's like to need help and have nowhere to turn." His voice softened. "I can't solve all your problems, but I can give you a safe place to sleep tonight. The rest we'll figure out tomorrow." Jessica put her face in her hands, shoulders shaking with silent sobs. Chase slid a box of tissues across the table and gave her space. When she finally looked up, her eyes were red but searching. "Why are you doing this?" Chase was quiet for a moment. His gaze drifted toward the darkened hallway where his son slept. 4 years ago, he began slowly. "My wife died. Cancer. Ovarian. By the time they found it, it was stage 4. Jessica's hand moved instinctively across the table. "We tried everything. Chemo, radiation, experimental treatments we couldn't afford. We sold everything. Drained our savings. Maxed out credit cards. Took loans against the house. The memories still felt sharp. We fought for 18 months, and she still left us." "I'm so sorry," Jessica whispered. "I had a 3-year-old who barely understood why Mommy wasn't coming home, and I had a mountain of debt that took 2 years to crawl out from under." Chase's voice went rough. "Lost the house, lost most of our stuff, had to start completely over. I took the first job I could get, construction, hard labor, long hours, moved us into this rental." He paused, the weight of those years pressing down. "And I just shut down. I wasn't living, I was existing, going through the motions. Wake up, get Aiden ready, drop him at daycare, work until I couldn't stand, pick him up, feed him, put him to bed. Repeat." "For how long?" Jessica asked gently. "Too long." Chase met her eyes. "I locked myself away from everyone. Friends stopped calling, family's back east. They offered to take Aiden for a while, but I couldn't let him go. He was all I had left of her. I had to be there for him. Had to try to be both parents, even though I was barely keeping myself together." He leaned forward slightly. "Some days, I didn't know how I was going to make it through. But there was no one else. No one to complain to, no one to hand him off to when it got too hard. So I just kept going." "What changed?" Jessica asked. "Nothing changed." Chase's laugh was hollow. "Not really. I'm still going through the motions most days, still trying to figure out how to be enough for him. But tonight, seeing you and Aurora out there," he shook his head. "I saw us, 4 years ago, drowning and desperate." He squeezed her hand. "Maybe the only thing that gives meaning to what we went through is if we use it to help someone else going through the same thing. No one was there for us when we needed it. Maybe I can be that person for you." Fresh tears rolled down Jessica's cheeks, but this time she was smiling through them. "Thank you," she whispered. "Thank you."
Morning light crept through the windows. Chase woke to an excited voice cutting through his exhaustion. "Dad! Dad! There's a girl in the living room!" He stumbled out of his bedroom to find Aiden standing in the doorway, staring wide-eyed at Aurora curled up on the futon, still asleep. "Buddy, keep it down," Chase whispered, steering him toward the kitchen. "We have guests. Let me explain over breakfast." As Chase made pancakes, his only specialty, if it could be called that, he told Aiden an age-appropriate version of the night before. His son listened with that serious expression he got when processing something important. "So they're staying with us?" Aiden asked. "For a little while, yeah. I need you to be on your best behavior, okay? Aurora's been through a lot." Aiden nodded solemnly. Then he said something that made Chase's chest tighten. Like we did, when Mommy got sick. Chase pulled his son into a tight hug. Aiden rarely talked about those days. He'd been so young. Yeah, buddy. Kind of like that. Then we should help them, Aiden said matter-of-factly. Because nobody helped us, and it was really hard. The wisdom in those simple words nearly broke Chase. You're right, he managed. We should help them. Jessica appeared in the doorway, Aurora on her hip. I'm so sorry, we didn't mean to impose. Pancakes? Chase interrupted, gesturing to the table. Fair warning, they're not gourmet.
Over breakfast, the two children watched each other with cautious curiosity. Aurora, once she warmed up, proved to be a chatterbox. My bunny got lost, she told Aiden sadly. Mr. Flopkins, he was my favorite. We can make you a new one, Aiden declared. Dad taught me how to sew buttons after Mommy. After she went away, we could probably figure out a rabbit. The look Jessica gave Chase over the children's heads was one of profound gratitude. Days turned into weeks. An unexpected routine formed. Chase left early for construction sites. Jessica got the children breakfast and walked them to the nearby elementary school. Aiden had insisted Aurora should come to his school, and Chase had managed to arrange temporary enrollment. Jessica spent her days job hunting, making calls, slowly rebuilding her life piece by piece. Chase would come home to find dinner cooking and the house filled with something it hadn't held in 4 years. Laughter. For the first time since his wife died, Chase found himself actually looking forward to coming home. The silence that had suffocated him for so long had been replaced by noise, conversation, life. He caught himself smiling without forcing it.
4 weeks in, Jessica got a call back from a clinic on the outskirts of town. 3 days later, she had a job offer. I start Monday, she told Chase that evening over their now ritual tea. The kids were in bed. The pay's decent. In a month, I should have enough saved for first and last month's rent somewhere. Oh, Chase felt something sink in his stomach. That's great, really. Jessica studied him carefully. Unless you don't want us to leave. He stopped, started again. I don't want you to leave. These past 4 weeks, this house has felt like a home again, instead of just a place Aiden and I exist in. Then we'll stay, Jessica said softly. I'll pay rent. We'll figure it out as we go. Chase nodded, not trusting his voice. Something was shifting between them, but neither was ready to name it yet. Months passed. Fall turned to winter, then spring. Jessica's presence transformed the house slowly. She painted Aurora's room a soft lavender. She organized the kitchen. She brought home flowers and put them in the window. But more than that, she brought back pieces of Chase he thought had died with his wife. He found himself engaging in real conversations again, laughing at stupid jokes, playing board games with the kids instead of just going through the motions. Aiden blossomed under the attention. His quiet sadness lifted. He talked more, smiled more, started bringing home better grades. And Aurora, shy at first, became the spark plug of their little household, bossing Aiden around with the confidence of someone who finally felt safe. Late at night, after the kids were asleep, Chase and Jessica would sit on the porch with tea and talk about everything. Her nursing shifts, his projects at work, the kids' latest antics. But underneath it all was something neither of them acknowledged, a current, an awareness. One night, their hands nearly touched on the armrest. Both pulled back quickly. We should probably, Jessica started. Yeah, Chase agreed, for the kids. Neither said what they were both thinking. What if we mess this up? What if we ruin what we've built? Aurora's 8th birthday came in September, nearly a year after that rainy night. They threw a party in the backyard, small, just a few kids from school. Aurora had spent the morning making Aiden a construction paper crown, declaring him the birthday king. Chase watched them play together, Aurora's blonde head next to Aiden's dark one, and felt his throat tighten with emotion he had been holding back for months. Jessica came to stand beside him. They're good together, she said softly. Yeah,
Chase agreed. They are. A long silence stretched between them. Then Jessica said, so quietly he almost didn't hear it, I don't want to be just friends anymore. Chase's heart stopped. He turned to look at her, really look at her, at this woman who'd stumbled into his life broken and desperate, who'd slowly put herself back together while helping him do the same. I've been waiting a year to hear you say that, he admitted.
Jessica's eyes filled with tears. I was so scared. Scared of ruining this. Scared of... Chase kissed her, gentle, careful, full of all the feelings he'd been suppressing for months. When they pulled apart, both were smiling. We take this slow, Jessica said. For them. For us. Slow, Chase agreed. I can do slow. Slow turned out to be harder than they thought. Dating while living together with 2 kids watching their every move required strategy. Movie nights became dates only after the kids were asleep. Stolen kisses in the kitchen. Held hands under the dinner table. They told the kids 3 months into their relationship, sitting them down seriously. So, Chase started awkwardly, Jessica and I... You're boyfriend and girlfriend now, Aurora announced happily. Finally! Aiden rolled his eyes. We've known for forever, Dad. Apparently they'd been less subtle than they thought. The first year of dating brought challenges they hadn't anticipated. Jessica got a bad cold that landed her in bed for a week. Chase panicked, completely shut down emotionally. The fear of losing someone else he loved came roaring back with a vengeance. Jessica noticed immediately. Hey, she said gently when he brought her soup, his hands shaking slightly. I'm okay. It's just a cold. I'm not going anywhere. I know that, Chase said, but his voice betrayed him.
You're scared. Jessica took his hand. Chase, look at me. I understand. But you can't protect yourself from loss by shutting down every time something happens. We have to talk about these things. It was the first of many difficult conversations, learning to communicate fears, learning to be vulnerable, learning that love after loss meant facing those fears together. Jessica had her own struggles. When money got tight one month, she insisted on taking extra shifts, pushing herself to exhaustion. I can't be dependent on you, she said when Chase confronted her. I can't be that woman who needs to be rescued. You're not, Chase said firmly. We're partners. That means we carry things together. You don't have to prove anything to me, Jess. They learned, slowly, painfully, beautifully. They learned to fight fair, to apologize, to forgive, to lean on each other without losing themselves. Sometimes love isn't about the grand gestures. It's about choosing each other every single day, even when it's hard. The second year of dating felt different, easier. The sharp edges of their individual trauma had been worn smooth by patience and time. They celebrated holidays together, real celebrations, not just going through the motions. Halloween costumes, Thanksgiving dinner, Christmas morning with too many presents and not enough coffee. They built traditions, Friday movie nights, Sunday morning pancakes, Wednesday evening walks around the neighborhood. Aiden, now 10, had become Aurora's fierce protector at school. Aurora, now 8, had Aiden wrapped around her little finger. One evening, as they cleaned up after dinner, Aurora asked casually, "When are you guys getting married for real?" Jessica nearly dropped the plate she was holding. "We haven't really talked about that yet, sweetie," she said carefully. "But you love each other, right? And we're already a family. So when do we make it official?" That night on their porch, their place for important conversations, Chase brought it up. "Are we ready for that? Marriage?" Jessica was quiet for a long moment. "I think I am. I think I've been ready for a while. But only if you are. Only if we're both sure." Chase thought about the past 3 years, about the woman who'd shown up in his life with nothing, about how she'd helped him become a man who could actually feel again, about the family they'd built from broken pieces. "I'm sure. I've never been more sure of anything." 3 months later, on a Saturday afternoon,
Chase stood in his backyard, watching Aiden and Aurora set up an elaborate obstacle course with pool noodles and cardboard boxes. The ring in his pocket felt heavy. He'd been carrying it for a week, waiting for the perfect moment. But watching Jessica laugh as Aurora declared herself Supreme Commander of the Backyard Kingdom, Chase realized there was no perfect moment. It was just this. Just them. "Hey, Supreme Commander, can you come here? You too, Aiden."
The kids ran over, breathless and grass-stained. Chase knelt down, looking at all three of them. His son, who'd learned to smile again. This little girl who'd brought chaos and joy into their ordered existence. And the woman who'd saved him by letting him save her. We're a pretty good team, right? The four of us? The best team, Aurora declared. Chase pulled out the ring, heard Jessica's sharp intake of breath. What if we made it official? He looked at Jessica, his eyes saying everything words couldn't. What if we became a real family? Jessica Collins, will you marry me? Jessica's hand flew to her mouth. Tears streamed down her face, but she was smiling, radiant, joyful, alive. Yes, she whispered. Then louder, yes! Aiden whooped and tackled Chase in a hug. Aurora jumped up and down, not entirely understanding, but caught up in the excitement. Jessica kissed him, and it tasted like promises and second chances and home. The wedding was 6 months later, on a crisp fall day. They kept it small, intimate. Just close friends and Mrs. Maria, who'd witnessed this whole journey from the beginning. The ceremony was outdoors, with leaves falling like confetti. Aurora walked down the aisle first as flower girl, taking her job very seriously. Aiden followed as ring bearer, grinning from ear to ear.
Then Jessica appeared, and Chase forgot how to breathe. She was beautiful, but more than that, she was whole, healed, strong. When it came time for vows, Chase's voice was thick with emotion. "Jessica, you taught me that broken doesn't mean beyond repair. You showed me that it's okay to live again, not just exist. You gave my son back his laughter and gave me back my heart. I promise to choose you every single day, in the good times and the hard ones, because you're worth choosing. You're worth everything." Jessica was crying openly now. "Chase, you showed me that home isn't a place. It's people who choose to love you when you have nothing left to offer. You taught me that accepting help isn't weakness and that letting someone in doesn't mean losing yourself. I promise to be your partner, your equal, your home, for all the days we have." The officiant barely finished pronouncing them husband and wife before they kissed to cheers and laughter. That evening, after the small reception, after the kids were finally asleep, both of them piled into Aiden's room because they were too excited to sleep alone. Chase and Jessica sat on their porch one more time. "Do you ever think about that night? The rain?" "Every day. I think about how easily I could have driven past. How, for 4 years, I'd been driving past life itself."
I'd given up, Jessica admitted. Sitting there in that shelter, I couldn't see any way forward. I was just empty. She turned to look at him. "You gave me back hope. You gave Aurora a home. You gave us a future." Chase pulled her closer. "You did the same for us. This house was a tomb before you came. Aiden and I were ghosts haunting our own lives. You made it okay to live again." Through the window, they could hear Aiden's voice drifting from his room. "And then the knight and the princess and the dragon all became best friends and lived happily ever after." Jessica laughed softly. "Our son has quite the imagination." Our son. The words settled like a benediction. Chase thought about that rainy Tuesday 3.5 years ago. How he'd stopped for a stranger. How that stranger had become his everything. "We saved each other," he said quietly. "Yeah," Jessica agreed, resting her head on his shoulder. "We did."
They sat in comfortable silence under the stars, two people who'd learned that sometimes the darkest nights lead to the brightest dawns, that sometimes hope looks like a stranger stopping in the rain, that family isn't always about blood. Sometimes it's about choice, about showing up, about loving fiercely even when you're afraid, about being broken together and finding wholeness in the pieces. Chase Ellis stopped on a rainy Tuesday thinking he was helping a desperate stranger. He didn't know he was saving himself. 3.5 years later, 4 broken pieces had become one whole family. Their story wasn't about perfect timing. It was about patient healing, about second chances, about the grace we find when we're brave enough to let hope in again. If this story reminded you that it's never too late to begin again, share it with someone who needs hope today. Subscribe to Soul Lift Stories for more stories that remind you your story isn't over yet. Sometimes the best chapters are still unwritten, waiting for that one moment of courage when you choose to stop, to see, to help, to love. Because sometimes saving someone else is exactly how you save yourself.